Prince Harry is terrified, not of terrorists, assassins, or rogue paparazzi, but of his own decisions, delusions, and the deadly spiral of self-pity he has entangled himself in. The latest unraveling comes not from a tabloid scoop, but from the irrefutable truth laid bare by Lady Colin Campbell, a woman with decades of intimate proximity to the royal family and a fearless commitment to truth. As Harry rages about security being snatched from him, invoking his mother's tragic death as if it were an echo of his own looming fate, Lady C is having none of it. With scalpel-like precision, she slices through his revisionist narrative, exposing the grotesque distortions he's peddling to justify his paranoia and feed his lust for relevance. The facts are not murky. Diana, Princess of Wales, voluntarily relinquished her royal protection officers. This was not a cruel twist imposed by Buckingham Palace, nor a vindictive punishment by a cold ex-husband or scheming in-laws. Diana chose to forego her security detail because she believed it would free her from the so-called spying of the crown. This was confirmed in public record, and in Lady Colin Campbell's posthumous biography, The Real Diana. Diana's decision, however tragic in hindsight, was a product of her own agency, something Harry conveniently erases when he dramatically reimagines her as a powerless victim, forced into vulnerability by the institution she once belonged to. Harry's claim, aired in People magazine, that Diana's death was a direct consequence of her being stripped of royal protection is not only false, it's exploitative. It weaponizes her memory to draw a grotesque equivalency between his voluntary exit from the monarchy and the fatal decisions his mother made in her final years. His desperate attempt to retrofit her tragedy to justify his own craving for taxpayer-funded protection is not just dishonest. It's manipulative, theatrical, and utterly disgraceful. And yet, this is the playbook of the Duke of Sussex. Rewrite history, center himself as the wounded protagonist, and cast the monarchy as the callous villain. It is as if nothing is sacred, not his mother's legacy, not the truth, and certainly not the dignity of the institution he fled. His accusations ring hollow because they are based on distortions. Diana was warned against giving up her royal security. Prince Charles, Prince Philip, Queen Elizabeth II, and even Robert Fellows, her brother-in-law and then private secretary to the Queen, all implored her to retain her protection. But Diana, strong-willed and fiercely independent, declined. What's terrifying is not that Harry doesn't know this. It's that he does and still chooses to lie. What kind of man invokes the dead to justify his self-imposed exile? What kind of son reduces his mother's multifaceted legacy to a cautionary tale about his own perceived victimhood? Harry's constant lament that his children are unsafe in the United States without British taxpayer-funded security is not a legitimate concern, it's a shakedown. He voluntarily stepped away from his royal duties, relocated to a private estate in Montecito, and signed multi-million-dollar deals with Netflix, Spotify, and Penguin Random House. And yet he still believes the British public should foot the bill to guard him while he trashes the very institutions that funded his lifestyle for over 3 decades. Lady Colin Campbell is right to sound the alarm. There are deadly consequences not from a lack of security, but from the kind of disinformation Harry spreads. When he claims that the British state is liable for what might happen to him, he's setting the stage for a grotesque blame game in which he's always the victim, and everyone else is guilty. It is emotional extortion masquerading as legitimate concern. And worse still, he knows that media outlets hungry for royal drama will publish his every sob story without scrutiny. And what of Prince William? Has anyone paused to consider the pain Harry's reckless rhetoric inflicts on the brother who walked behind the same coffin? William, who has honored their mother's legacy with poise, discretion, and a deep sense of duty, must now contend with a sibling hellbent on twisting Diana into a tool for sympathy. There is no shared grief anymore. Only Harry's performative anguish, conveniently packaged for American audiences who wouldn't know the difference between Clarence House and Kensington Palace if it hit them in the face. But then again, that's the audience he plays to. Meghan Markle, who fancies herself a pseudo-intellectual with the cunning of Rachel Zane but none of the restraint, has become the co-director of this grand opera of grievance. Together, the couple have rebranded trauma as a commodity, pain as currency. And Harry, in this warped delusion, is no longer the prince who once walked tall beside his brother. He is now a self-styled martyr on the run from a system that coddled him his entire life. There is something almost Oedipal in the way Harry invokes Diana. As if, in marrying his Jocasta in Meghan, he has rewritten the maternal bond into a twisted new mythology where only he understands her suffering. The comparison may sound theatrical, but so is Harry's entire public persona. It is not enough for him to remember his mother. He must own her narrative, warp it, deploy it. And in doing so, he spits not only on the truth, but on the people who actually tried to protect her and him. Harry's security woes are a smokescreen. The truth is far more embarrassing. He left the royal family without a plan, expecting the world to adjust to his demands. He assumed titles would remain, funding would flow, and the mystique of royalty would grant him eternal immunity. But in the real world, when you quit your job, the perks don't follow you out the door. That is not persecution, it's reality. But Harry has never operated in reality. His worldview is still that of a spoiled prince, stomping his feet because the palace refused to build him a fortress in California. The British public owes him nothing. They have endured his accusations, swallowed his condescension, and watched him tarnish the monarchy with his juvenile tantrums. If he wants security, let him pay for it, just as Diana paid for hers in the final years of her life. Or let him call up Tyler Perry again. But the taxpayer has already spent enough on his navel-gazing journey of healing. Let us be clear, this is no longer about safety. It is about control. Harry cannot stand that the royal family went on without him, that Britain has not collapsed under the weight of his departure, and that his brother, steady, dignified, dutiful, has stepped into his role with grace and strength. In contrast, Harry flounders between delusions of grandeur and fits of paranoia, dragging his wife and children into a narrative constructed not for truth, but for attention. Lady C has done the world a service in dragging this narrative into the sunlight. She stripped it of sentimentality and presented the cold, brutal facts. Diana's fate was her own doing. Harry's security demands are unjustified, and the man who once had the world's sympathy has become a caricature of grievance and entitlement. The repercussions of Harry's delusions are deadly, but not in the way he thinks. They endanger public trust, corrode the dignity of the royal family, and insult the memory of a woman whose life and legacy deserve far better than to be used as leverage in her son's ongoing emotional blackmail campaign. This is not a prince in peril. This is a man unraveling, loudly, publicly, and shamefully.